The Jelly Couch Stories, written and illustrated by Miss Jennifer Hagen. The Jelly Couch Stories started as a nightly bedtime ritual for two wonderful children. I was their nanny for a spell, and these stories became the ultimate reward for a well-behaved day. Even after they moved to a new country, they called me periodically before bed for a new Jelly Couch story. These stories developed spontaneously as I sat on the couch in the playroom and they were tucked into bed. The lights were turned out and the imaginations were turned on. They were the best audience. Since being a nanny, I have shared the Jelly Couch stories with other children with the same fabulous results. They asked for the stories time and time again. The Jelly Couch stories contain positive morals, environmental awareness, and great kid adventures. I hope your children enjoy them just as much. Love, Miss Jenny Hagen. For Jules and Josephine, Hannah, Ashley, baby Peter, Mary, Charlie, and baby Daniel, Jeremy, and children everywhere. Chapter 1. The Painter Family. Once upon a time, in a not-so-distant past, lived the Painter family. They had two beautiful children. The children, you might be curious to know, were named Jules and Josephine. Jules was a spunky blonde 5-year-old who loved going on adventures. Josephine was 7, and her mousy brown hair was always a mess after all her day's adventures. She loved her little brother very much and always looked out for him. Jules and Josephine had a wonderful mother and father. Their mother, Francine the Painter, loved the trapeze. She loved the trapeze so much that she would rarely come down from the rafters of their home. She cooked on the trapeze. She sang on the trapeze. She even danced on the trapeze. Jules and Josephine thought it was the most amazing thing that their mom could do the dishes upside down hanging from the ceiling. Their father, Charles the Painter, was a mad scientist. He spent many long hours down in the basement laboratory working on all sorts of top-secret experiments. He always let the children be the first to see his results. He once hatched an Antipop Dradon just for fun for them. What is an Antipop Dradon, you ask? It's a scaly water creature about the size of a small dog at first. But that is a story for another day. Charles and Francine loved Jules and Josephine so much that they built them their very own special magical playhouse. The playhouse was a magic house made out of sparkling brown gingerbread bricks. Its roof was painted by Francine to look like large blue gumdrops and yellow candy corns. Francine sewed bright red and white candy cane curtains for their windows of the playhouse. Best of all was inside the playhouse. Charles had invented and created the most amazing jelly couch, just for Jules and Josephine. What is the jelly couch, you might ask? The jelly couch squished and squibbled whenever Jules and Josephine jumped on it. Every night it made sounds like deep ocean waves. It lulled the children to sleep. It was the color of raspberry jello, and when the sun crept in through the candy cane curtains, it shined like a sparkling bubble pie. It was the children's favorite place to settle down after a long day of adventuring. More wonderful than the jelly couch was what was outside the front door of the jelly couch playhouse. Just to the left of the front door was Linu, the most magical old grandmother oak tree. She was not an ordinary oak tree, as you will soon see. Linu spiraled up so high into the sky. Her branches reached way up into the clouds, high past the birds, higher than the airplanes, even higher than you or I could see from the ground. So high up that a misty fog clung to her branches always. This was Jules and Josephine's favorite place to climb. They talked to Linu every day. Then they would climb up into her branches and cross over into magical, wonderful worlds. Jules and Josephine loved Linu very much. This is the beginning of a great adventure. Jules and Josephine will be happy to know that you have come for a visit. Let's go and see what they are up to now. Chapter 2. The Antipop Dradon. Jules and Josephine woke up on the jelly couch to a gray day. It looked like a dreary day to be outside. Jules said, "I wonder what Mom and Dad are doing today." "I'm not sure. Let's go see," said Josephine. They hopped off the jelly couch, wandered over to their Mom and Dad's house. Their mom, as always, was merrily swinging from the trapeze, upside down, making scrambled eggs when they walked in. "Good morning, Mom," they said. "Good morning, my children. Would you care for breakfast?" said Francine. "Oh, yes, thank you, Mom," said Josephine. "Mom, where's Papa?" asked Jules. "Oh, he's down in the basement, working on another something or other." "Something special, I hear, for you two tots," said Mom. "Why don't you bring these eggs and toast down to him, okay?" Jules and Josephine carefully carried the breakfast down the darkened steps on a steaming silver tray. At the bottom of the steps was a large iron door with a blinking red handprint. Josephine put her hand in the center and it blinked green. Josephine said, "Papa, Mom has breakfast for you." A large telescopic hose with an eyeball popped out of the door and quickly shrank back in. A loud boinging noise came up from inside the door. It opened with a long creak. Papa stuck his head out the door, his frizzy gray hair all a mess. He smiled down at Jules and Josephine. He adjusted his glasses and said, "My children, thank you so much for breakfast. Come in. Look at our newest pet. You are just in time to watch it hatch." "That is so exciting, Papa. Can we really watch?" said Jules. "Mm-hmm," mumbled Mr. the Painter as he shoved a large piece of toast into his mouth. He led Jules and Josephine through the maze of gurgling and fizzy-colored potions. At the back of his laboratory was a large red lantern centered on a large green egg. "Papa, what kind of egg is that?" asked Jules and Josephine, wide-eyed in amazement. "It is an Antipop Dradon egg from the Antwerpen mountains of Zamibia. A very rare specimen indeed, children. It's been incubating here for several weeks. I'm not exactly sure what to expect," said Papa. At that moment, a small green crack appeared in the egg. The top burst open and out popped 2 large blue eyes. Then a fat face emerged and a fat segmented green reptilian body. It lay on its back with its 4 little legs gripping towards the air. It seemed a most confused creature, and it let out a small grunt. "He's for you, children, a pet of sorts," said Papa. "Really, Papa? He's for us?" Josephine said, hopping down and up on one foot. "What do they eat, Papa?" asked Jules, scratching his blonde head. "Why, brickleberries. From the Antwerpen mountains, of course." Papa reached into his pocket, pulled out a small round ball covered in prickly spikes. He handed it to Jules. He carefully placed the brickleberry next to the Antipop, who was now beginning to use its legs. It slowly climbed over the brickleberry, sniffed it once, and then turned its head away. The Antipop then curled itself into a little ball and fell fast asleep. "Papa, why didn't he eat it?" asked Josephine. "I'm not sure. Maybe it's a lack of sunlight down here. Perhaps if you children brought him out in the sunlight, that would cheer him up a bit." "The Antwerpen mountains are very hot," said Papa. "But Papa, it's gray and cloudy outside. Won't he get cold?" said Josephine. "Has it been a full day since I've been up in the daylight?" asked Papa. "Actually, it's been 4 days and 3 nights, Papa," said Josephine with her hands on her hips. "That's dreadful. I must get outside more. Let's go upstairs, shall we, children, and see your mom is hanging around," said Papa. Papa pushed a few buttons, and the reddish light surrounded the Antipop Dradon turned into a white light surrounded by a blue haze of force field. The 3 painters exited the basement and headed up to the stairs. Mum was busy hanging upside down above the kitchen sink, humming a tune that she made up. The sink was overflowing with bubbles and suds, and the clinking of dishes rattled down the hallway. Josephine and Jules laughed at the sight. "Mom, Mom," cried Jules. "Come and see what Papa hatched in the basement." Francine was so startled that she did a double-back somersault off the trapeze and did a full handstand in the sink full of suds before allowing her dainty toes to grace the kitchen floor. "Ta-da!" said Mom. 2 weeks, 3 days, 22 hours, and tapping at her watch. "Tick-tock, 9 minutes to be exact since I last touched the floor," exclaimed Mom. "But Mom, come and see what Papa has in the basement," whined Jules. The whole family barreled down the stairs and into the laboratory. The Antipop Dradon still had not moved from his spot. Jules and Josephine were beginning to get worried. "Papa, he doesn't look so good," said Josephine. "Poor little thing," said Mom. "He hasn't even eaten 1 bit of the brickleberry. Charles, take those ridiculous blue lights off at once. The poor thing needs a bit of sunshine and love." The Antipop barely twitched when Mum picked it up off the lab table and cooed softly at it, stroking its neck. A faint shine rose from the Antipop's eyes. There, poor thing," cooed Mum. "We'll get you some milk and honey." Mum took Jules and Josephine up the stairs to heat some milk while Mr. the Painter stayed in the basement. He continued fuddling around for 2 glowing green beakers of potions. Women, all their sunshine and love. "Well, I'll be getting back to work then," mumbled Mr. the Painter. Upstairs, Mom was already heating up some milk and honey to soak the brickleberries in. Sometime later, the Antipop was still as curled up as ever and barely moving. "Mum, he won't eat," sighed Josephine. "I'm not sure why, children. I don't know what to do now," said Mum. Outside was gray sky, and it began to clear and lighten, and the sun came out. Mum had an idea. "Children, why don't you take the Antipop outside to Linu and see if maybe she can help the Antipop Dradon?" "Mum, that's a great idea. Come on, Jules, let's go talk to Linu," said Josephine. Jules and Josephine carefully carried the Antipop out to Linu and set it in the shady grass around her roots. Jules and Josephine waited for Linu to speak. Several minutes later, Linu groaned and said, I see. Please try to understand, children, that this poor creature is homesick for a home he has never seen, but he knows exists with all his heart. He misses his family. These Antipop Dradons live in great bunches in the desert of the Antwerpen mountains, and they play together in the rivers that run through the mountains. He senses that this is not his home, and no matter how much food you give him, I'm sorry, children, but that is the way that it is, said Linu.
Oh, Linu, that's just so sad. He misses his mom and dad and brothers and cousins and sisters and aunts and uncles. I wish we could bring him home.
Jules said,
Oh, Linu, can you please make a path to the mountains through your branches? Linu, please, cried Josephine in her smallest voice.
Yes, children, I will make it so you can bring him home, but you must be very careful as you climb, for he is very weak. He will know when he is close to home, and he will help you find the rest of the Antipop Dradons, exclaimed Linu.
Oh, thank you, Linu. I'll go and get my backpack from the playhouse to carry him in. Jules, will you please go and tell Mum that Linu is helping us bring the Antipop back to his family, said Josephine.
10 minutes later, they were ready to start their climb up Linu. Josephine and Jules had carefully placed the tired Antipop into Josephine's bright red backpack and covered him in her soft yellow blanket. Jules reminded Josephine that they should leave the top of the backpack open so that the Antipop could get lots of fresh air. Jules and Josephine climbed up into Linu's branches. Jules thought Josephine looked funny climbing with the Antipop's head poking out of the backpack. He giggled at her as they climbed the tree. They climbed up, past the birds, up past the airplanes, all the way up and into the clouds. The veils of mist cleared as they walked, and the sun was shining just as bright as it could be. The land was red like the planet Mars, and the sun was hot just as an oven can be. The plants were sharp as needles. Wow, look at those mountains, Jules, said Josephine. Off in the distance was a blue river flowing with the red earth like a giant snake. A small whisper came from the backpack. Josephine, I think the Antipop wants to get out, said Jules. Yes, Jules, let's feed him a few of these berries and see if he will lead us to where the other Antipops live, said Josephine. Jules took 2 brickleberries from his pockets, placed them on the ground in front of the Antipop. Slowly the Antipop walked over to the berries, sniffed them, and gobbled them up. Jules and Josephine were so happy. He wobbled for just a moment, then he started to walk. Then he stopped, looked back to see them following him. I think he wants us to go with him, said Jules. Yes, we'd better make sure he gets back to his family, said Josephine. They stayed just in back of him a little, and they followed him through the prickly pear cactus. They followed him up the rocky hills covered with sticky prickers. They followed him all the way to the edge of the giant mountain with the blue snaking river. They stood on the edge of a high cliff looking down at the incredible white waterfall. The spray from all the water lifted to the air and caused 3 beautiful rainbow waterfalls to hang always above the pool below. The Antipop squealed with joy when he saw a small pod of 10 Dradons and several small ones like him swimming below. Jules and Josephine were so excited that they could barely stand it. The Antipop Dradon were so colorful. Some shined like gold, while others were the palest shade of green.
One was even colored blue like the nighttime sky. Josephine thought she could even see little stars floating on his skin. "How do we get down there?" asked Jules. As soon as he had asked the question, the little Antipop Dradon was climbing out onto one of the rainbows. He stood waiting for them to follow. "Oh my goodness, we have to walk down that rainbow?" "Come on, Jules," said Josephine. It was a very magical feeling walking down a rainbow. Jules was walking slowly across the green stripe, and Josephine was feeling quite comfortable on the edge of the red stripe. Josephine thought the most magical part was how she could see through the red hue and stare down into the water. She could watch as the Dradons swam back and forth under the water beneath her. The baby Antipop had made its way down the rainbow, and it was happy being greeted by 5 other Antipops. They rubbed noses and licked faces. Jules and Josephine knew they had made the right choice to bring him home. As they walked down the last rainbow, they were delighted to find that they could also walk on water. Jules and Josephine laughed as they watched the Antipops swimming around under their feet. Josephine reached down and touched the nose of an Antipop swimming by. It was hard to notice walking down a rainbow, but behind the waterfall was a grand cave, which was the sleeping place of a family of Antipop Dradons. Jules and Josephine followed their little Antipop toward the cave. As they neared the entrance, they heard a slow humming music coming from the cave. "It's so lovely. Let's go closer, Jules," said Josephine. "Look, Josephine, our Antipop is curling up by the big yellow one. I bet that one is his mum," said Jules. "He looks happy, huh, Jules?" said Josephine. "Yeah," said Jules, giving his big sister a hug. "Hey, Jules, should we head home now?" said Josephine. Slowly and carefully, they made their way back to the rainbow. Josephine climbed the blue stripe, and Jules climbed the yellow stripe. They walked back through the prickly pears, back through the red rocks, and all the way back to the mists of Linu's branches. Down they climbed past the airplanes, down past the birds. They climbed all the way back to the earth. Linu smiled thoughtfully as the children carefully planted a brickleberry seed into the earth by her roots. "Thank you for remembering, Linu. Thank you for remembering the way back home," said Josephine. Yes, Jules and Josephine were happy to be home, back with their family. They went to their mom and papa's house and had a wonderful dinner, filled with amazing stories full of their Antipop Dradon adventures. Then slowly they made their way back to the playhouse and crawled onto the jelly couch and fell fast asleep.